Yeah, you go like, hi, I'm Chelsea Potts.
You're so scared. Like, ever since the Flat Earthers started attacking us online, you're so scared of people finding out your true identity. But, like, you already gave it to them. That's the thing about that, is, like...
You're right.
We've already given them our true identities.
Kat's saying, like, she checked the metrics in the YouTube database stuff, and it showed that you's a bitch.
Yeah?
My database says you's a bitch.
They're not gonna kill you. They pussy. All flat earthers are about inaction, you know?
Flat earthers talk about it, but they don't be about it.
But they're not really about it. That's why you don't see any of them at the edge, you know? Talk shit on the
Don't just
internet.
talk about it, be about it.
Get on a boat and fucking go.
All right. We did that podcast already.
Let's move on with our lives.
Let's move on.
I'm talking to the people, our KKK listeners.
Oh, okay.
If the KKK or the group was really, like, committed to their action, they would, like, just go to Chicago and try to shoot as many black people as possible. Let's see how that goes.
Why Chicago?
There's a lot of black people.
A lot of black people in Chicago.
Like, per capita?
We're just like any type of densely populated city.
Yeah. You know, just shoots a bunch of black people. But the KKK doesn't do that because they're pussy.
Yeah, they're all in rural areas.
Yeah.
We know I can't say that
It's so
word.
easy to hate black people in the countryside. There's, like, no black people there. You can find, like, one group of black people burn a cross on their lawn. Say that.
You're going to do that every day?
Keep that same energy in Brooklyn. That's all I'm saying. Y'all pussies.
Keep that same energy in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Y'all pussies.
Oh my god. Moving on.
Do that, guys. Anyway.
All of that is getting cut out.
Yeah,
all the
absolutely.
stuff about
Absolutely, yes.
dicks is getting cut out.
What? No.
You said he was Nazi adjacent.
I'm not calling him a Nazi. I'm calling all of his fans Nazis.
That's not what I said. I said that it probably includes Nazis.
Do you think your fan base includes Nazis?
I certainly hope not.
Because they're going to hate this episode.
Yeah, they're not going to be a fan of this
They're not going to like
at
this
all.
shit at all.
Mm-mm. What are we talking about?
Mm-mm. Should I introduce myself?
Hold on. We have to do a podcast. Focus up, you guys. Chelsea quit the podcast.
I quit the podcast.
You quit the podcast like every other week, dude. You're always quitting the podcast.
No.
That's true.
This is not the greatest song in the world.
No.
This is just a tribute. Anyway, welcome.
Just do it.
Take it seriously.
Take
it seriously.
She told me to get it out.
Take it seriously.
I got everything.
Take it seriously.
I got it out.
Take it seriously.
Chicken bitch.
Welcome to Obviously It's Fake, the podcast. With us today is fan favorite
Really?
Ian Vaughn.
Oh, thank you.
Fake. That was
That's
applause.
a fake
That's
crowd
applause.
noise.
Yeah. Yep.
Edit that in there. Hey, guys.
Welcome, Ian.
Hey, Ian.
Always a pleasure. I love hanging out with you guys.
We're happy to have you back on the show.
What? Thank you.
It's a very exciting episode, as today's episode will be wrapping up season 1 of Obviously It's Fake, the podcast.
Right.
We'll be taking a little break.
Oh, that's sad.
It is sad.
That's sad.
It's very sad.
We'll be back.
We'll certainly be back for season 2. Big things are coming in season 2.
Ciao.
Exactly.
You can have, like, be the commenters when they go like, oh, Flat Earth Dave ran them off. That's not what happened.
I resent that accusation.
That's what they're gonna say.
I resent that accusation.
It could be.
I guess, yeah. It certainly could be. I mean, the timing.
impeccable.
The timing is impeccable. But this has been planned for quite a while. One of our favorite podcast hosts, Chelsea Potts, is going to be getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You got to take the headphones off, put the microphone down, and put your dress on, and that's what I got to do.
You gotta shut the fuck up and get married.
Yeah.
Quit talking into this goddamn microphone.
Exactly. Jesus.
Get your ass in the kitchen.
I knew that was coming.
Barefoot.
Get a baby inside of you.
Where am I?
And start focusing on what's important.
All right.
Ooh.
So let's just dive right in since we're getting saucy already.
Yeah, that's the least problematic in the whole show. I think it's going to get
I don't
worse.
know why we just started to tell Chelsea Potts that she has to give up all of her dreams.
I have no
because
idea.
she's getting married.
No idea.
She started it. I feel like she started it.
I don't appreciate that you said we. I was like, I don't want
She
to.
dragged you in.
I never said
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said we very fast.
White privilege.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, they always want
That
to
was a
include
white-
everybody else. I didn't, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's always a we with yeah.
Trying to get you to take the fall.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about white privilege, white supremacy, and the fact that there are some people who do not believe it is a thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there who think that the idea of white privilege is a conspiracy, that it's not a real thing, and that it is indeed obviously fake. You know, that's not our position. Here at Obviously It's Fake, the podcast.
And I am present to kind of be visual proof of that.
Well, I don't like it when you say that because, number one, that's very problematic. That's very problematic. What you're saying is that we're using you as our token.
Hey, guys. I am here as an expert on being black.
Ian Vaughn, black person.
Black person.
That's what it would say if this were the
At the
news.
bottom. Yeah.
At the bottom.
Ian Vaughn, local black person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what he has to say. I'm like Ja Rule.
You were exactly like Ja Rule in that way, as Ja Rule is also a local black person.
Was he the one that was connected to the fire? With
Yes.
The oh,
Yes.
poor Ja Rule.
Yes.
All right.
White supremacy.
You know, obviously we're not professional journalists.
So, I don't understand why people don't think that white privilege is a thing.
Absolutely. I can absolutely see why people don't think white privilege is a
Yeah,
thing.
there's a lot of, I mean, like, you know, there's so many reasons why people don't think that white privilege is a thing. Number one, it requires you to, like, admit that you have, like, participated and benefited from something that you know, that you didn't deserve in any way.
Not necessarily. I mean, you would simply just be saying, yes, I acknowledge that it exists in society.
Well, I mean, there's just so many places where there's only white people, only black people, only certain, and that's by design. And like without the internet's a relatively new thing. So if a person is growing up with primarily white people, how would they ever think that they have an advantage over anybody else if they don't even see anybody else?
Exactly. Like if the collective around you is not addressing something, then it's very easy for everybody to pretend like it doesn't exist.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, why do we have to, like, let's hypothetically, let's say we didn't have all this horrible history of black and white.
Yeah.
And let's say that, you know, a black person moved into a predominantly white neighborhood. Why does that have to be a black person moved into a person moved into a person's neighborhood is like what I think it should be. You know what I mean? Not like, oh yeah, a black person moved into our predominantly white neighborhood. Or a Latino person moved into our predominantly white neighborhood.
I think that, like, the idea of being colorblind and that being a good thing is the first example of white privilege that we can talk about in this episode tonight, because wanting to like view the world in a colorblind way is certainly something that is like, you know, reminiscent of white privilege, because you're essentially just wanting to like put your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist.
I know.
You know what I mean by saying, like, if you're not acknowledging differences and problems, then how are they ever going to be fixed?
Okay, there's definitely differences as far as what people are exposed to with where they live.
Yeah, you have to identify problems in order to solve them.
But I'm saying hypothetically, all had the same, like, opportunities, what have you.
You're saying if we lived in a utopian society.
Yeah, let's say like none of this stuff from before happened.
Yeah. So if none of the stuff from before happened, then there wouldn't be white neighborhoods.
It'd be crazy good.
That's true.
Yeah, if that stuff didn't happen, then there wouldn't be white neighborhoods.
There's a song. There's like a rap song that says like exactly what you said. All black everything.
All black everything.
Yeah.
So I was talking to a friend, and their spouse is black. And
is it me?
No, it's not you.
Your spouse isn't black.
And he says, we were just in the house the other day, and I didn't have my phone with me, but I heard it go off, and I freaked out. And I'm like, why? And he was like, because I don't know what could happen to him if he gets pulled over. And like, I want to make sure I have my phone in case, so I know where he is, and I can go to him. And I'm like, wow, that's a really powerful feeling to have. Like, do you ever have that when Ian leaves the house? Do you ever think to yourself, oh my God, what if he gets pulled over just because he's black while driving?
Yeah, I mean, that's happened to Ian a ton of times.
Her response to that doesn't make any sense, because if he pulls his phone out to call her, he's definitely getting shot.
Right.
Why would he? You guys, the game plan's all messed up. If the guy gets pulled over, don't pull your phone out.
True.
Yeah, the only time, like the times where Ian has been pulled over, the phone call that I receive from him is always after the fact.
Way after.
Yeah. I got pulled over.
I got pulled over, and this is wild what happened. It sucked. But I didn't pull my phone out because I would have gotten shot.
I remember he called me to tell me that he had gotten pulled over when our daughter was very, very young, and it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Like,
why wouldn't it?
Oh my God.
With everything that
I
you see.
got horrifically mistreated that time.
It was terrible. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
He was like horribly physically mistreated. His rights were violated.
Yeah.
That officer was not only unprofessional, but it's dangerous that he is on the force.
So I was talking to this friend about police officers, right? And I was talking to them about the mental health aspect. And I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I'll circle back.
The mental health of police officers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So this person had been in the military. And I was saying to them, I said, I really think that the military did you dirty because when you got out, you had issues. And I was like, I feel like it's the same way with police. I feel like there needs to be the mental check-in.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All the time.
Police should very regularly be required to undergo psychiatric evaluation and should have therapy and all of those things.
They should be mentally tested before they even become cops.
Yeah. Of course.
Actually, probably more than physically. And
more than physically, they should definitely be, they should be tested for, like, I mean, anybody can go online and take an implicit bias test.
Yeah.
To see, like, what their personal implicit biases are. Mm-hmm. So that you will know yourself. It's not, and it doesn't even necessarily say something bad about you. It's an opportunity for you to be aware of what your natural instincts are.
Yeah, it's insight.
And to adjust them
it kind of just
if needed.
sounds like, are you a racist kind of test.
Well, it basically,
if I was racist, I would totally fake that test.
Well, it's like an ethics.
You would fake that test?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. It's kind of like hard to fake because it doesn't give you. It's not questions. I've taken one, and it's not questions so much as it's like the test measures your reactions and like the pattern of the way that you answer, the speed and how it changes between white faces and black faces.
Are you racist? You took the test, right?
I did take the test.
Did it come out, yes, you're racist?
The test came out that I am like naturally biased to respond in a more positive way toward black people.
I knew it. Oh my God.
I feel like this podcast just took a sharp turn.
Oh my God.
A sharp one.
That's crazy.
Stop.
She is down with the brown, ladies and gentlemen.
Congratulations, Ian. I thought you were going to start calling me racist against adult male blondes.
I was about to.
I thought you were going to start going in
They're
on
their own subculture.
Yeah, like, I'm not
crap.
gonna. Yeah, come on. Man. They get enough.
They really do.
You know.
Poor white man.
Poor white kid. You know. Yeah.
Guys.
Sorry.
Focus out.
Speaking of white sheets.
Speaking of white sheets, great transition.
Speaking of ghosts and what they wear.
I'm interested in, like, you know, why did racism even, like, why is there such a huge concept of hate based on color, you know? Of anything else, like, why is it that?
Well, Ian Vaughn, funny you should say that.
Am I on a game show? Am I on Cash Cab?
You've got an opportunity to win!
I don't. I'm black.
And that's white privilege.
Thank you and good night. No, it is though, because it kind of just is how it is. I mean, the white person, if there's a white person up for a promotion and a black person up for a promotion, I mean, the likelihood
if Cash Cab is going to pick up either a white person or a black person, they usually are going to pick up the white person.
Cash Cab picks up white people.
That's true.
And only white people. Say, no, I'm not putting that on. I love Cash Cab. They pick up black people sometimes. Which is why they know probably it's a fake cab. Black people probably, like...
That's how you know that it's not a real New York City taxi, is because they're picking up black people?
No. If you ever watch Cash Cab, like, the black people who get picked up, they are a little more suspicious to what's going on. They look, like... And then they go, okay, we're going here. And then the lights go off. Because they know, like, this is weird. I got picked up.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I think black people are definitely, I mean, not to make a racial generalization, but more observant than white people. Most black people that I know are more observant than
we look
white
around
people.
Because crazy stuff happens.
Yes.
To us.
Yeah. Well, that's like an element of white privilege, is that like I don't have to be super observant. Mm-mm. Like I've never been like, oh, I need to make sure that I'm really aware of my surroundings and what's going on around me and who might be like paying attention to my movements.
There's also almost never been a 50-50 chance that you would be the only one. If Ian goes somewhere, there's a 50-50 chance he's going to be the only person of color there.
I mean, depends on where he is.
10.
I mean,
well, yeah.
Now, like, where we live now, like, our current neighborhood, yeah, absolutely. It's, like, 90-10. Like, he's usually the only black person.
Right.
When we're, like, in a restaurant or something. You know, something like that. But, I mean, that wasn't the case for most of his life. Yeah. I mean...
Right.
You know?
I went to a, school where they taught, the days of Kwanzaa. In the school.
That's so cool.
Yeah, there were no white kids in your class.
No, the whole time I was going there, I had one white teacher in 7th grade and one white classmate that my mom tells me wasn't even white. But I'm like, he was white. You were about to drop knowledge on us, Kat. And, like, you straight up didn't.
And she was like,
well...
No, you stopped me, as you usually do. Usually when I'm allowed to, like, say a fact that I know, you change the subject. That's typical in our everyday life, and why would it not continue on this podcast?
How do you ever get anything done?
Our simulation theory episode was all over the place.
I liked it.
I loved it. Listen. Look. Racism. White supremacy. It all started, really, back in the Spanish Inquisition, don't you remember?
Obviously.
We just learned about
Like
this.
it was yesterday. A lot of people died. I was there. PTSD.
Damn.
Well, actually, like, you know, it is thought that the effects of multi-generational racial trauma is embedded in the DNA of Black people and Jewish people.
That makes sense. Especially because, you know, all the crap that the Jewish community had been put through.
That doesn't make sense to me. Like, you would think that someone's individual trauma is their trauma and doesn't somehow infiltrate the... Like, I'm just feeling like the trauma is so severe that it somehow, like, got to your sperm.
That it's in your DNA. It's within your DNA.
That
like,
it's a little intense.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's crazy.
Well, it's thought that, like, things like the Holocaust and, like, the genocide that has gone on Vietnam.
Yeah.
The genocide that went on there. The genocide that went on in Rwanda. The genocide that went on in the, like, indigenous communities in the United States, genocide that happened, like, with slavery, and, like, the torture that happened with slavery, like, how severe that was, and because it lasted through multiple generations, like, people were being born into these things.
Born into slavery.
Born right into getting beaten.
Exactly. Like, and what that does, because, like, there is... Now, this is, like, there's scientific evidence that goes into this that I don't understand and I can't explain to you. But, you know, we can link some articles in the show notes. But there is scientific evidence that, like, suggests that it is within people's DNA. And that, like, trauma can be passed down through the womb. And that, like, certain physiological responses that people develop, you know, out of an adaptation to survive, that gets passed down. You know, that's Darwinism. So it gets built into the DNA of certain bloodlines of people that have gone through unimaginable amounts of torture.
I know that happens with alcoholism, but I didn't think that would happen with, like, a trauma.
And it causes things like higher levels of anxiety among certain racial groups, higher levels of depression, mental illness. Like, it's kind of like a I mean, it's often a joke in, like, movies and, like, culture about the Jewish community that, like, mental illness is, like...
That they're so worried about everything that happens. Like, the stereotype is, like, this gives me gas, I'm worried about this, you should worry about this.
So much anxiety, like, depression, mental illness within the Jewish community. Like, that's, like, a whole trope in, like, all of Woody Allen's movies.
Jerry Seinfeld made millions off of it.
That was a huge Jerry Seinfeld trope. Even, like... Abby and Alana on Broad City, like, delve into that trope as well. Like, that's, like, a really common trope.
It's a common trope in the Black community, too.
It's just ignored more, exactly.
Well, no, it's in media and stuff like that. Like, it's always, like, Black... Okay, you heard about this. Like, Black people are the first to run.
Yeah, that's true, exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. When someone starts running... like if someone's running from something, a Black person's more likely
to recognize it and automatically start running. Yeah, they're not going to wait.
Your fight or flight is just like,
oh, just
flight,
always like,
here we go.
Like, dude, like, we're more perceptive to when something's going on.
But yeah, back to the Spanish Inquisitions thing. We just learned that. And to plug a really awesome docuseries that's available about all of this information right now on HBO, Exterminate All the Brutes, is amazing. Ian and I were just watching that the other night, and it examines kind of like the history and like the origins of white supremacy and like how it has shaped our nation. And it was really like very powerful.
Yeah. It's like telling the lesson that like the winners are the people who write history.
Exactly. The winners are the people who write history.
You never hear the people who lost. You never hear their side of the story.
Yeah, America. Yeah. When you think of America and when like people paint the picture of America, it's like the scrappy underdog that like
it's way different.
We like built this country out of.
It's way different for me.
But that's it. Like when you like hear like and it's true. Like even like in that documentary, you know, they're playing the speeches of the last several presidents. Mm-hmm. You know, talking about like what this great nation was built on. You know, the backs of these hardworking people that like came over here to escape persecution and like built this nation out of like of like love and hope and all this stuff. They're telling the
truth, but they just fast forwarded like past all the bad stuff.
Yeah, but they built it on the genocide of a nation that was already here when they arrived.
Yeah. That's how it started. And then with the slavery and like
exactly,
and then segregation. So it's like not even like.
But yeah, and like they didn't even build it.
But then there was Reconstruction.
Built it. They didn't even build it.
You ain't even built it.
You ain't even built that.
Reconstruction happened, and things were okay for a little bit.
When?
For like
during Reconstruction, like right post slavery.
Oh yeah.
Things did start out good. Yeah, we talked about that in our we actually the episode where we talked about that in voter fraud, and then we talked about it again in COVID Part 1.
Did we?
Because we forgot to talk about the greatest president of all time, Rutherford B. Hayes.
Oh,
He's the worst president.
Exactly. I was being sarcastic, obviously.
But
greatest of all time is Abraham Lincoln. Go Lincoln. But
there you go. I mean,
that's all it needs to be
said. He's the GOAT. But I was thinking about like
who's the second greatest president?
No, I was just thinking about how like it's crazy that when we were watching Exterminate the Brutes, how genocide was taking place, and that slavery most likely saved black people from like just being straight up murdered, because like they needed black people for like work, so they were willing to fight for that. But, like, other than that, like, if they didn't use us for work, if they just, like, kind of captured us and we wanted, like, our independence, like, they could have just straight up killed us. But the reason why we didn't get straight up killed is that they needed us for slavery, so we had time to escape. I mean, luckily, get a president that was just like, yo, we don't want this, and then bang. Every other indigenous group got wiped out. Like, wiped out.
Yeah, Native Americans, there's, like, none left. I mean, that's not true. There's quite a few, but...
Not really.
Well, no, there are Native, like...
There are Native Americans. You can't say that
there's not Native...
I'm not going to say there's not Native Americans.
There's still, like, Native Americans living on reservations.
Yeah, but they're like the equivalent to, like, a holographic Pokemon card, you know?
Ooh. I don't know if that should be a compliment.
Like, statistically...
Yeah, like, you know?
Like, yes.
They used to be 100% of America.
Could you imagine?
Used to be like them and Buffalo.
We wouldn't be here if our ancestors didn't rape and pillage the indigenous people of this country.
Right? That's white privilege.
Don't put that on me. I'm here. My ancestors didn't do that.
No, ours did.
Oh, I was like, because I said,
no, she's talking about me.
She said we. I was like, oh, snap.
Me and Kat, our ancestors raped and pillaged. I'm not proud of it. I mean, but there was nothing I could do to change it.
And that leads us to the people who are proud of it. They think they messed up not being even more super into this whole, like, white supremacy thing. They wanted, like, everybody out.
Well, you know, you want to hear something? You want to hear a cool stat?
Yes. Stat me up.
All right. Stat this on for size.
Ooh.
Take a stat at this.
Why don't you take a stat at this one? So... It is said, it's estimated, right, that by the year 2045, white people will become a minority in the United States.
That's not that long from
and
now.
that the majority of the country will be non-white.
It's going to be way sooner than that if Steph Curry keeps shooting threes the way he's shooting them.
Exactly. That's a great point.
You know what else is another point? How beautiful all those babies are going to be.
I don't know, Chelsea Potts. It's kind of...
That proves my point.
Yeah,
Everyone
exactly.
wants mixed babies are in vogue.
Exactly. Let's talk about the next piece of white privilege that Chelsea Potts has conveniently brought up for us in a very natural way.
It just slithered right in there with it.
Yeah, people do really fetishize mixed children.
Yeah, they want the baby black, but not too black.
Yeah, they want
not
like
to be like
we have gotten compliments on the way that our child looks because her complexion is essentially like just dark enough to be exotic, but not so dark as to
be black.
Really be black.
My side of the family always goes like, "Oh, we love her hair. She has white hair," and that's the thing that they always gravitate to, like, oh, thank goodness they don't have like this hair. I'm like, I like my hair. But black people, like in my family, do not like their hair, or they just like white people's hair better.
No,
that's like, I feel like that's programming.
It's definitely programming. I mean, it's like years and years of programming that like their natural hair is not acceptable, that it's not professional, that it's not beautiful, that it's not feminine, that it's not,
In some states, it was illegal for like a long ass time.
That's insane.
When I did my co-op, my engineering co-op, my second one, my boss, so I was like 20 years old.
Illegal to have hair?
To have their natural hair.
Yeah, their natural hair out. Yeah. My boss said that, like, if I was to work in a professional capacity after college, I probably would have to cut my hair. That's what my boss straight up said to me in the year 2010.
And look at you.
Rocking dreads.
Your whole professional career, which...
has
been very successful.
In 2010, that was what the standpoint was. Like, you can't have that hair in a professional setting.
I mean, it might be getting better, like, in the number of instances that you're experiencing, but, like, legally, it's actually gotten worse. There was a Supreme Court decision that ruled that telling somebody that they had to change their hair.
Oh, because of the football team, right?
It wasn't, I don't think it was a football team. The decision was like specifically in reference to employment, that like employers are allowed to put restrictions on the way that you can wear your hair to what they deem is unprofessional. Like, it's not like an issue, like, not saying that it's like an issue of safety, like, you're not allowed to have long hair because it can get caught in machinery, like stuff like that is reasonable.
Yeah.
But just like if you work in an office or like whatever, like they ruled that it was not constitutional to tell employers that they couldn't dictate what they felt was professional and not professional in terms of hairstyle.
That doesn't I don't feel like that makes it better that they even addressed it, because before they weren't addressing it. And like before it was already a moot point.
It was like this was like a precedent that...
No, the precedent absolutely sucks. But what I'm talking about is the condition like is better because it's something that like people had to address. And two, a company...
You're saying that like bringing the problem up.
Yeah, they brought the problem up, and like that's going to lead to outrage, because before that wasn't even seen as outrageous. That wasn't even seen as something to address. Like, of course, your hair's unprofessional, get out of here. We don't want anybody with high top fades in here. Like, that was just something that was just acceptable. Like, no one challenged that. But now that it even had to go to that decision is good. And, like, companies aren't going to be able to get that shit off. I don't care, like, what it says. If someone goes, like, we think your hair is unprofessional, and they have dreads, like, they're not... A lot of companies aren't willing to take that heat.
Yeah, because it's immediately...
And that's great. Before, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's immediately thought of as racist because of the fact that if you're speaking specifically about dreads. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
They'll just find a different reason though. They'll just wait until you show up late, then boom.
And that's again, that's not ever something that we've ever even had to think about as white women. You know, we've never had to think about anything like that. I mean, as women, sure, that we have struggles. However, I mean, as a black person in America, you guys have a whole different view on the country, on how society works as a system because of how history has treated black people as a race. You know, I feel like maybe that's too big of a thing to say. I don't know.
No, that's not too big of a thing to say. It's very accurate. Yeah, that's very accurate. It's not too big of a thing to say. I mean,
I think it's crazy though. Like, why? I live not even 5 miles. Do I live 5 miles? I don't know how far it is, but it's not that far.
The flat earthers know a lot about like.
Yeah, you were like, what if they find out
from this monument?
Exactly.
Oh, we were at this park. They're gonna put pieces together. That's what they do.
You kept being like, don't let we have to we. You wanted to take your. I was like, Chelsea, you already gave your real name.
You gave your real name.
We put our names on this podcast from the beginning.
Now we're 5 miles away from you.
They're gonna find us.
All right,
they're gonna find us.
We live in the same town. But we live in neighboring towns.
Yes.
And I never thought what my everyday going to the grocery store, hitting the post office, for you, that whole thought process could be different depending on what's going on in the world and what's going on in society. You know what I mean?
Well, you want to hear a funny example of the first time that I was ever really surprised by my white privilege and something that I didn't realize was going to be a piece of privilege that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So when I was pregnant and chose my OBGYN, because of my white privilege, I didn't consider what a huge impact going to a clinic that accepted low-income or non-insured mothers, what type of an effect that would have on my care.
Oh, wow.
And how possibly detrimental it could be to my life and my child's life.
Right.
But, I mean, but I didn't think of that because I'm white. And I've never had to wonder if, my doctors were going to take me seriously. Now, as a pregnant woman, naturally, a pregnant woman is taken less seriously than the majority of the population.
Sure.
That's, a different subject, but I mean, nobody is treated worse in a medical setting than a black pregnant woman. And I mean, some of the things that it took, I mean, it's astonishing to me. I'm embarrassed when I think back about it now at how long it took me to realize that the clinic that I was going to was a clinic kind of a place. I'm embarrassed at how long it took me to realize this, because thinking back and the different times where when I looked around and saw behavior that I thought must be really unusual, why are they not paying attention to this woman? Why are they not listening to this woman? Why is this woman crying and you're rolling your eyes at her? There must be something about her.
Yeah.
I assume that that there must be something with her that I'm not aware of.
Right.
But I mean, in hindsight, wow, that was really how almost everybody was treated.
That's awful. I mean,
that had almost detrimental consequences to my life.
Yeah.
And I'm not even black,
I mean, you just think about it. I never even really thought about my white privilege until we kind of started talking about this a little bit. I feel guilty about it because I'm white and it's, I I have that privilege. I don't mean to. It's like, I'm sorry, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, then the question I think becomes, like, how long can you be ignorant until your ignorance is willful? You know what I mean?
Right.
And, like, how much of a responsibility does the white community in our country have to fixing the issues that white privilege cause?
I think 100% because of the fact that white privilege is the reason for it. White privilege.
Well, are you willing to give up your privilege?
There's no way
for people to be
would
treated equally.
Happen.
I mean, there are policies that could put advantages into black communities that would, potentially have negative effects to the pocketbooks of white people. If you started funding schools with property taxes instead of separate school taxes, for instance, I mean, that'd
be a huge detriment to the community.
It would be it would lower the property values in white neighborhoods, but it would bring more money into
black neighborhoods
into poorly funded schools.
You don't even have to do. See, that's the thing though. Like
there are things that could be done.
Just think about that though. Like what? Like that's what's happening right now. But think how they're doing it is they're just fixing up everything and kicking everyone out, and then making the schools better. Like that's just what
gentrification.
It's just gentrification. But I mean, I've been my personal life noticing white privilege was just in school. When I was in second grade, one of my teachers said that I wouldn't be anything but a criminal or a drug dealer, and that was just
second grade.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
can you imagine saying that to a second grader? How old is a second grader?
Lord, 10?
Not even
7 years old.
A second grader is not even 10 yet. They're
7 years old.
7 years old.
And that was just and I remember going to my mom and telling her what she said and how it bent me out of shape. But that's not the only thing. I get in my life I got mistreated by cops so much, right?
Yeah.
To the point where I'm yo, that's statistically it's could kill me because they say 98% of cops that kill a black person, an unarmed black person, serve no jail time. Yeah. So it's no consequence.
There's no consequence, yeah.
So dealing with police officers is nerve-wracking when you know that there's nothing. The power dynamic is so shifted when you're a black person. Mm-hmm. You feel you have no safety net. You're talking to a cop. Imagine talking to somebody. It feels like you're in the old west almost, where you're talking to somebody and in the back of your mind you know that person can just pull his gun out and shoot you, mm-hmm. and nothing bad will happen to him.
You know what?
You can't do anything, right? So you feel
that's
powerless, or even anxious, really, because you're well, I'm at this person's whim for however long this interaction is.
The only feeling that I can think of to liken that to, that I think might be relatable for a person who is not black, would be something that white women could relate to, that feeling of being scared.
Oh yeah, taking the long way or the short way or the keys out or the pepper spray.
And it's that same attitude.
You're forced to be when you're with a cop, you're forced to be engaged with that cop.
Yeah, you don't really have a choice.
If you're a white woman, your recourse is to run away. But if we run away, we die.
Yeah, you die for sure.
So you have to stay engaged. So it'd be equivalent to a creepy person in your house.
Exactly.
And you don't know him.
Yeah. And I feel it's also there's a parallel to the negative reactions that you have on the other side of arguments about white privilege, as well as the negative reaction that you have and arguments in reference to the Me Too movement. and I think it comes from the same place too. People don't want to have to examine their own personal biases when it comes to race. People don't want to have to admit to themselves that they have actively participated in a system of white supremacy, that they've benefited from that, that they've like in some ways maybe even contributed to that, whether it's like consciously or unconsciously. And it's the same thing that like men don't want to examine like their own personal behaviors and question whether or not like their locker room talk is appropriate, whether or not like it's toxic, that like
catcalling,
you know, catcalling, or like even the practice of like, you know, manipulating women in like wingman scenarios, or like predatory tactics at bars, or like going after drunk chicks, or like sleeping with women who have had
way too much.
Exactly. You have to examine your actions and like what you've said is okay, what you've done in your lifetime, what you've participated in, you know, and that's not an easy thing to do. Mm-mm. It's not an easy thing to like admit that you're part of a greater problem in the world.
By default, it's
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we also as a society like really demonize people when they're wrong.
We do. We really shame people hard when they're wrong.
We do.
I think that's a missed opportunity to even further discuss white privilege, because do people get demonized when they're wrong?
Yeah. Well, people get yes, people get demonized. People get like canceled in the media. Like like that does happen. Like you could say that of like I feel like
who got canceled?
Well, like I feel like
Justin Timberlake, right?
Justin Timberlake. They're saying Justin Timberlake is canceled, but
what about like Roseanne?
Yeah.
Well, that's because she said something awful.
Yeah, she came out and she was genuinely racist.
Yeah.
Right, and she got taken off of her show.
But the show went on.
Well, I mean, a lot of her fan base, and like a lot of like Trump supporters in general argued that like the treatment of her, like what she said was not racist. Even though it definitely was.
Yeah.
And that like she was being persecuted, you know, for her political beliefs or whatever. But she did get taken off of her show. It was no longer the Roseanne show.
Because to perpetuate the wrong narrative.
That chick that just got taken off of The Mandalorian.
Gina Carano?
Yeah.
Yeah, but... like,
you get canceled, but like, it's... People don't have this... I agree with you that people don't have the same outrage that they do, you know, for certain other things, but people are definitely... we do demonize people.
Yeah.
We do definitely demonize people.
We pick and choose.
But we do pick and choose, you're right. And I think that we also, like, we don't... we're not very, like, open to, like, allowing people room for growth. Like...
No, we're a very one and done...
Like, we like an underdog story as a society, but, we don't support people making mistakes and changing and like admitting their wrongdoings and like that's like kind
being
of
better.
Yeah, like that's like kind of like a rare thing.
There's only a couple people that are able to get away with that.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. Was one. He was.
That's just drugs, though.
Yeah, that's drugs.
That's just everyone does.
He didn't
that.
He wasn't like a horrible racist.
No.
He like came back and was like
racists don't really get forgiven.
Like who did that? Like nobody.
Yeah, no one comes back from racism.
No, you're right. Not really.
I mean, the Colonel.
The Colonel?
Yeah.
Look at what happened. No,
they rebranded the shit out of the Colonel, didn't they?
They did.
They just turned him into Norm Macdonald. Like,
and then they just kept changing.
Black people love Norm Macdonald. Oh, secret. The truth is revealed. You didn't know that? Black people love Norm Macdonald for some strange reason.
Because he tells it like it is.
No, he doesn't.
In a monotone.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't say anything. It's because, like, he was cool with Dave Chappelle.
I love Dave Chappelle.
Black people love Dave Chappelle too. Like Norm Macdonald stayed around Martin Lawrence and like Dave Chappelle, and it was smart. So,
Martin
like,
Lawrence is funny.
Well, yeah. I mean, if Dave Chappelle is gonna co-sign for you, then
yeah, that's why people ride with Norm.
Yeah,
and they made him the Colonel.
That's why Black people love John Mayer.
Black people love John Mayer?
Yeah, because he's like with Dave Chappelle in that skit.
He's best friends with Dave Chappelle.
What about Michael Bublé?
Black people don't like Michael Bublé.
Black people hate Michael Bublé.
Michael Bublé did a song with Boyz II Men, and I still
White people hate Michael Bublé.
I like Michael Bublé.
Like, you want to just talk about like the people that white people don't know that black people like?
Yeah.
Just change the topic of the episode.
Black people love Phil Collins.
Why?
I knew that already.
You knew that, right?
I hate Phil Collins.
Black people love
How many
Phil
times
Collins.
does Phil Collins pop up in the rap genre?
Black people
constantly
love Phil Collins.
Phil Collins is always sampled.
Phil Collins did a song with Bone Thugs and Harmony.
I'm not familiar with their work.
Yes, you are.
Shut up!
You have to be.
You don't know who Bone Thugs and Harmony is?
You've certainly heard a Bone Thugs and Harmony song in your lifetime, Chelsea Potts. You're incorrect.
Stop it.
You are You had to have.
Stop.
Maybe, I don't know.
If you heard that,
you don't miss your Uncle Charles?
Did you miss my Uncle Charles?
That's white privilege. How did you go through your whole life
without Bone Thugs and Harmony?
See You at the Crossroads.
See you at the crossroads.
Maybe I'm just the reason that white privilege is a thing.
You're getting very dramatic. You know, this is like a classic. This is the classic white woman thing. Actually, this is the next trope that Chelsea Potts has just stumbled into.
What?
For us naturally. This is the third. She's doing the hat trick now. This is the third time.
I'm not.
You can't. Yo.
You planned
Yeah,
it.
I feel like you're trying to make Chelsea seem privileged.
Stop it.
What's the third thing?
You're always demonizing me in the media.
The fourth point. White women playing the victim.
We do.
So the thing that Chelsea and I both just displayed is white women playing the victim and how that's like a common thing to happen because white women are oppressed oppressors. And like that's
that's oppression inception.
Right? It is. Oppression inception.
The scariest thing to a black dude is a white woman.
Well,
you guys can just call the cops on us and say we did something and like we'll die. And go to jail.
Oh my God.
Somehow the same time. Like there's no
simultaneously.
It's like it's really hard to have like legal recourse when a white woman blames you for something. No one wants to hear what you have to say. So like you guys are very dangerous in that way. I'm talking about like Karens and people who like just
somebody called me a Karen in the comments of our you read that?
I did.
You're a Karen?
Somebody was calling us Karens in the comments.
You're a weird Karen. Cause like you're
they were saying like we were being like Karens to Dave. We were being a couple of Karens.
Wait, Flat Earth Dave's black?
No, he's white.
Then you can't be a Karen.
I think they were saying they were using it not in like the racial way that is associated to the use of the term Karen, but in the way that like we were just simply being annoying women. We were complaining.
Yeah, like
so white people took Karen?
White people took Karen.
Yo, I thought white people started Karen.
What are you Oh my God. Privilege.
She's a Becky.
Like
I'm Becky.
She's a Becky.
This is the same thing that happened with Bling Bling.
Becky.
Do you remember Bling Bling and how cool Bling Bling used to be until white people just started
invented it.
Non-stop saying bling?
I'm taking my slippers and I'm going home.
You thought white people invented bling?
Way to play the victim again, white woman.
Oh my goodness. This is insane. It's like you guys can't stop.
Screw you guys. It's in our DNA.
It's in our DNA.
Cap proved that at the beginning of the podcast. Weren't you listening?
It's in our DNA.
It's just non-stop privilege. It's just like, you know
generation
what?
From generation. Privilege.
It's not our fault we have privilege. It's in our DNA.
We are oppressed oppressors.
It's like something like what's the way to call it? I'll call it like a white power of sorts. that we have.
It's like a special power, a white power, if you will,
and we can't help it.
Where we're able to
just have it.
To never be wrong.
You know what?
We're able to never be wrong because
season 2 is going to be me going through every episode and being like, here's why I was silent here.
I'm going to start speaking my truth finally.
I'm Chelsea, the unreleased tape.
I'm Chelsea, and this is my truth.
That's crazy. So white people's DNA. They can't help it.
They can't.
That privilege has been passed down in our DNA, generation through generation. And the only thing that we know how to do to fight it is play the victim.
And ask for your manager.
Bro, the number of white women that have called the cops on me is staggering. I got the cops.
Same.
I got the cops called on me for paying my rent check.
Oh.
I got the cops called on me for eating fast food in a shopping plaza.
How dare you?
Yeah, the cops came to my house.
You criminal.
They thought I was casing a bank.
Who cases a bank anymore?
I'm sure people case banks.
I'm sure they do. I mean,
give me all your money. Stick 'em up, Shay.
This is also privilege. Yeah, people are still robbing banks, guys. People are still robbing banks, guys.
Really?
Yeah, people are, yeah.
Yeah, I guess
also,
that's
people
white
are
privilege,
mad
too.
right
The most white privilege thing I've ever said was that time that I said that I didn't understand why anybody would ever take the night owl bus.
No, you didn't say night owl. He's like, I don't know why I don't know why anybody would take the bus. Period. Hello, there's
Philadelphia
Uber.
bus.
That's what I said. I don't know why anybody would take the
system
bus. Hello, there's Uber. And I was like, what?
Is disgusting
Uber
in my defense.
$20
and like that was the year after there was that news story where they showed all of the bed bugs all in the SEPTA seats.
So
that's gross.
Some people don't have a choice. They just have to take public transportation to get to the places they need to go to make the little money they have.
You're never going to let me forget saying that.
Yeah, because it was wild. You should never forget saying that. It was nuts.
It was the most
You basically said, I don't
I've
understand why people take public transportation.
I know. It was the most privileged thing I've ever said. So, a list of things that Ian Vaughn has been stopped by the police for.
Yeah, when I was like a teenager, I got stopped by like 2 cops while me and my friends were sitting in the park, and they just blatantly like assaulted us in the park for no reason, like punched us and stole my friend's jacket, like pretended that there was a gun that was on us, like he like planted a gun and said it was ours, and like got us worried that he was gonna like get us with a gun charge, and then he just took the gun back and put it in his holster.
Oh my god, the way that you're describing this is not even as scary as it was. I am like remembering the story of this.
He took the gun and put it in his holster, and he said like, just, you know, I could do this to you, just like behave out here.
Well, he illustrated to you how easy it would be for him to ruin your life.
Yeah, basically.
That, like, you don't even need to do anything wrong. He can just decide to ruin your life forever. Yeah. And it'll just happen, and no one will ever believe you.
And he just stole my friend's, like, really expensive jacket, just took it, and then that was it.
Because he thought it was funny.
Yeah, and he could steal stuff from us, and, like, arrest us and do whatever he wants. Probably kill us. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's really scary. But that was, like, when I was a teenager. I think that was the first time.
That was your first interaction?
I was mistreated by a cop. Because, like, before that, like, the school I was in had, like, the police athletic league. And there was, like, cops that would come in.
It wasn't your first experience with a police officer, but it was your first negative interaction where, like, it wasn't at a school function. This was, like, a real-life interaction with the police.
School functions, anytime something goes wrong, like, the cops would just, like, write something down and say that they're, like... But, like, they don't do anything. But it wasn't negative. It was just them just, like, talking about, like, dare and... Because that was the stuff that was popping back then.
How old were you when this happened with the police officer and the gun?
Oh, I was, like, 11, 12.
11, 12?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Like,
that's
11, 12.
So young.
That was the first one, though. Like, when I was a teenager, I was hanging out at my friend's house, and they ran in the house looking for drugs, and there weren't any drugs in there. And then like they like handcuffed us and started punching us until we like told them, but there wasn't any. So they hit my friend really bad one time. Like just tried to like good cop bad cop. I'm like, no, it's okay. Just tell me like where everything is. And then like he didn't say anything, and he got him all relaxed and just punched him right in the stomach. And, like he was bleeding and stuff like that. And then when they didn't find anything, they just like uncuffed everybody and left.
And just no consequences for that behavior whatsoever.
No. What were we gonna do? Call the cops?
Right, exactly.
Have them come right back? Then I moved. Those are both in like the tri-state area. But then I moved to like the Midwest, and then like mad stuff happened there too.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I got like accused of like casing a bank, even though I was just eating in a parking lot. And they came to my house. Like they looked up my information, came to my house, like and like started like questioning me on that. So cops got called on me for that. I got pulled over, and like they didn't believe I lived in the like house
in the
that
neighborhood
I did.
that
In the neighborhood I did.
Yeah.
So like they thought I was like lying about my address, and like I almost got in legit trouble for that. There was a silver car that got into a car accident. There was a car accident that happened in like a supermarket parking lot, and it was just a silver car, and they said the driver was black. So that was enough in like that county to just like call up every black person
In the
whole county with a silver car.
Oh
and
my God.
like cops showed up to my job to inspect my car just based off of that. And I was
That's insane, because that like could have had your boss been a different person.
yeah.
Or had your position been different even. Like think about if you were like more of a low level employee and how bad that would look.
Like yeah, the cops showing up.
Exactly.
It was during like a conference. It was like a training conference. Like and like there was like a lot of my bosses there, and like yeah, the cops were there, and I had to explain to them that it was just because like I'm black and drive a silver car.
That they were checking into the situation. That is outrageous. Like
Yeah. I've gotten pulled over in Williamsport and Illinois and Iowa, and every single time it was for no reason other than like it was just weird that I was in the area. And all three times they saw my engineering hard hat or my engineering stuff, and then like instantly like they let me go. Like
oh yeah, then it's like not a problem after that.
Yeah.
Because oh okay, I didn't realize that
you have a good job.
You were that kind of black person.
Yeah. Like I said, I got the cops called on me for mailing my rent check because someone thought I was digging in people's mail.
That you were stealing from the mail. You were attempting to steal from the mailbox.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's outrageous. Like I just like imagine like the person who called the police like looking out their curtains at you and being like, "Oh,
yeah, what's this guy doing?
Is that a black man by the mailbox?
Yeah.
Let's put an end to this."
I also got the cops called on me by my neighbors because they thought I was casing their houses when I was just playing Pokemon Go at the height of the craze. And that there's a lot of stories of that happening. It's not just an exclusive black thing. But I was surrounded by police when they got there.
That was so extreme.
I was surrounded by 5 cop cars.
Well, the way that the police went after you for the Pokemon Go incident was like, I mean, you would have thought that they were like catching a bank robber or like stopping a bomb threat. You know what I mean? Like
there were so many cops that when I was walking around, I was like, yo, I gotta go home. I was like looking on I was like, I gotta go home because like there's so many cops around here, like somebody murdered someone. And like I don't want to murder, and it was for me. Like I was like walking through the park, and like I went through like the parking lot, and there were like 3 cop cars just like parked in the parking lot, and there's only like 4 parking spots, and there were like 3 of them filled with like cop cars. I'm like, that's weird. And then like mad cop cars driving by. Like it felt like I had 4 stars in GTA, and like didn't even realize it. There's like mad cops driving back and forth, and I'm like, yo, there's like, I just saw like 9 cop cars in 5 minutes. I need to go home. They're probably looking for a murderer. This is crazy. And then like every cop just started pulling up on me, and I was like, it's for me?
You're here for me?
What did I do? Like I had no idea. And like I was only, and like I know people are like, oh well, you know, Pokemon Go, the height of the craze or whatever. I only walked in my immediate neighborhood. These were like my neighbors that just like called the cops on me.
That's
like I live there. I pay rent there. It was crazy. I lived with like a bunch of other white people. They never had to go through that. Who also play Pokemon Go.
Right.
Like,
and it was, I feel like at that time, during the height of the Pokemon Go craze too, all you ever saw was people walking around with their phones in front of their faces.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you could tell that they were playing a game.
I would walk with the sound of the game on. So
to make sure that people knew that you were
before I got the cops called on me. Because, like, the news stories were saying, like, you know... Well, really, the news stories were saying people were walking in people's, like, houses.
That they were, like, trespassing.
Going in, yeah, trespassing. Like, I was, like, walking on the sidewalk of a neighborhood with my phone up. But I would, like, even before, I was like, I'm just going to turn the sound on this game so people know I'm playing it. Mm-hmm. You know, I just thought that was a normal thing to do. Make yourself a
little bit more conspicuous.
Yeah. But, no, that's what... They still called the cops on me regardless. So that didn't matter.
Oh my God.
So there's been a lot of occurrences. So like I'm black, so police, you know, mess with me more than they mess with white people, period. Like, and I've been in a lot of places and it's just always been consistent.
It seems so like baffling to me when, you know, you hear experiences like that and like you see statistics about inequalities in our country, you know, and how like, you know, the United States is like 18% black, but the US prison system is 40% black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how... It's so baffling to me how that statistic, for some people, doesn't immediately illustrate, like, that's all the evidence you need. You know what I mean? That's all the evidence that you need. Because if there's not some type of racial inequality, and there's not some type of, like, systemic issue that is putting that high of a percentage of the black population in jail, then, I mean, the only other, like, conclusion that you could draw from that is that black people are somehow naturally born with a higher propensity to commit crimes.
Yeah, some people think that. Some people think black people are lazier and they don't want to do honest 9-to-5 work, so they rather do crimes. But it's really just because that...
Yeah. I mean, in stark contrast to a lot of your friends in college, I mean, when you would walk into your neighborhood, I mean, you were almost locally famous.
Yeah.
For successfully attending and graduating from college.
Absolutely, yeah.
You're like locally famous for that. Mm-hmm. And in the neighborhood that you grew up in and that you came from, it's true that you really do have to be an extraordinary human being to get that accomplishment. Whereas in my neighborhood, you just have to be regular. Like, you don't...
Yeah, it's not a thing.
You simply need to be passable.
Yeah.
To achieve that.
That's... Yeah, when I describe, like, how it was, like, to get to where I... Like, the obstacles, like, people don't even consider it. Because, like, the high schools where I grew up at, they didn't do any SAT prep, any... They did the bare minimum in terms of that. So like,
and like that
is the key to getting scholarship money that they desperately need. But you would think that in like underprivileged neighborhoods there'd be so much more focus on the SATs, but it's
and yet
opposite.
there's almost none.
It's not. So,
and that's white privilege. And that like in my neighborhood and in most suburban,
to even get to college you need parents with credit, right? Or money to pay for it. Like so I had a lot of struggles with like my parents didn't have good credit, so we had the only person that I knew in my family that had good credit, thank goodness, was my uncle, until I could establish my own credit. But I was in danger of getting kicked out of college my freshman year just because of financials, because I couldn't get anybody to co-sign on a loan for me. I couldn't go to high school without a scholarship, or I had to go to a private school. I had to get a scholarship, and just the SAT prep to get scholarship money for college is just so different that in inner city schools they just don't work on getting people financial aid for the next step. They just don't work on people for that. So education's definitely
they're
a big thing.
They're so underfunded that they're barely able to get the students that they have through those necessary first steps, that like there's nothing left to focus on next steps and like helping them flourish beyond that.
And so you don't, and there's probably a lot of brilliant people there that just don't have the tools to be successful. So they are just high school graduates that have so much potential.
It's so terrible. It's so awful because they're kids that grow up. And I mean, what kind of message does it send to a child that they're stupid? You know what I mean? Because like statistically, like if you think about it, like the stark, shocking thing for me is that like, in order for you to achieve what you achieved, you had to be extraordinary in your neighborhood. Like you were like known throughout the neighborhood for being intelligent. But not everybody in that neighborhood is going to be born with those natural abilities. You know what I mean? There are going to be a lot of people, who are just of a regular, normal intelligence, and they should be able to achieve these things. But because they were dealt the hand of being born in that socioeconomic environment and in that Black neighborhood, they're not getting a good education. Their grades are probably reflective of that. They're not motivated in school. Like, that's going to be reflective of that. They're going to, even you as a small child with the level of intelligence that you had, were told that you weren't going to ever become anything.
Yeah.
So what the fuck? If you're not a genius, like, what the hell are they going to tell you? How could you ever come out of that system thinking that you're an intelligent, capable human being?
Well, you can't. Well, you realize that you start to realize that the world doesn't like you, like really young, when you're growing in that kind of environment. But I don't know. A lot of credit goes to my mom. Like she graduated, so that was like, hey, like that can be the end goal. That's possible. And like she told me that. What is possible with a college education. She was a teacher in an inner city, so like she knew how to teach, and I guess that is an advantage of going home from school and having somebody who is a teacher and that can like kind of get you to the level that you need to be at.
It's just such a shame because like definitely I'm grateful that your mother is an amazing person and that you're a genius and that, your life circumstances led you to, me and to our life together and to, everything that we have. But it's just, I feel like it's such an incredible example of white privilege to, look at the other kids in your neighborhood who are, unfortunately, they're not geniuses who had mothers that were teachers.
Well, not even that.
And then you look at the kids who weren't geniuses, who didn't have moms as teachers in my neighborhood, and like statistically, they're all doing fucking great. And that's white privilege. Is that like like they didn't have those things, but they're fine anyway.
Yeah, they're good anyway.
They're fine anyway.
Well, I mean,
they didn't need them.
You can say that it has to take time because you need generations to establish generational wealth, and in the whole realm of, you can say post Jim Crow, like, it hasn't been that long, it hasn't been that many generations.
It hasn't. It's horrible that people think like, oh, you know, that stuff's all over.
I don't know.
So it doesn't exist anymore. But how can, I mean, the effects of those laws that, I mean, you know, like, your mother was a child when some of these things happened. So, like, for them to be gone
my
in
mom
less
was
than...
my grandfather's grandfather's father was a slave. So, like, I could hear stories of listening to my grandfather talking, like, about, like, oh yeah, my grandfather was a son of a slave. They can tell you, like, that's not that far away where you can go, like, yeah, you know, I heard stories about exactly what was going on from my grandfather. So that's not that far back.
You can't erase all of the ramifications of that quickly.
Yeah, that's the point is that, like, yeah, it's not that many generations have not elapsed in time. So, like, yeah, so
it's completely unreasonable to say that, like, it's...
But it's building, you know? Like, I feel like on the highest of high levels, you're starting to see, you know, black coaches, we've gotten a black president, we've gotten black CEOs that have been taking ownership of businesses and actually, like, not selling too early and, like, building that generational wealth, investing well. But yeah, I think it just has everything to do with education, that people just aren't aware what is available to them, and there's no real eagerness to educate underprivileged communities, and because there's too much money in it. There's too much money in the prison system than would be any position that you want to put a black person in. So in the government's eyes,
our for-profits prison system in this country is, like, a whole other, like...
Yeah, we're more valuable in prison.
It's disgusting. Like, that, I mean, you could have 100 episodes just about that.
We're more valuable in prison. In their eyes, there's so much more cops in the city than in the suburbs. Like, you can... Like, anyone can get away with anything in the suburbs. But, like, in the city, like, you get stopped just for walking. Yeah. Like, you can get arrested just for, like, being in the wrong place, like, loitering, though. Like, there's a lot of corruption that kind of, like, tips the scales uneven, but...
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like, most people do things that they could be arrested for.
Yeah, the same shit. Like, the boys will be boys thing that people say, like, that kind of stuff would get, like, my friends locked up.
Yeah, boys will be boys really only applies to white boys.
Yeah, it really does. Because, like, any of the stuff that, like, people talk about, like, you get arrested for it. Like, and, like, they don't take it easy on you when they catch, like, a black person. Like, sentences are proven. It's proven, like, with statistical data that it's higher for a black person than a white person for the same crime. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do that. Yeah, but higher for a black person than a white person for the same exact crime. There is bias present, and it's going to take more generations for it to
and these are just, like, what we're talking about. These are the harshest things that we're dealing with right now. There are, like, a million other small things, you know?
Oh, yeah. Like,
I mean, it's
I get mistreated, like, in restaurants. They think I don't... People in restaurants... I
mean, simply, you know, I think about our niece and her desire to have a black female therapist, and how difficult it is to find a black female therapist who works with minors, who is, you know, who accepts her insurance. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, we're still looking, you know what I mean? But, like, it's, you know, when I was a teenager, it was not hard at all to find a white female therapist. Not hard at all. You know, it was very easy for me to have caregivers who I could identify with. you know, on a personal level. That was very, very easy for me to find. And, like, I mean, that's a piece of white privilege. You know, people don't think that this exists because that saying that white privilege exists somehow means that they're, like, denoting all of their accomplishments and, like, you know, saying that, like, their life is a walk in the park. But that's not it. It's just that, like, there are certain things that, like, we as white people take for granted that
like you don't know what you don't
we
know.
don't even think about it.
You think that's something that should happen.
You don't know what you don't know, and we don't even think about it. I want to have a doctor that looks like me.
Well, even like no, your mom. When I told her the story about like the mail, and I said that I had to tell the officer that I was going in my pocket. She said she would have never thought about that.
Right. She would never think to say,
I'm going
to reach into my pocket now.
So
because,
there's that.
Yeah. That in and of itself is white privilege, that you're not going to think about it. You know, like I said, like, I feel like it was, like, such an eye-opening thing for me to realize that, like, the decisions that I made during my pregnancy, I made them because of my white privilege. You know, and that's like a natural thing that I have you know, after we had our daughter, a good friend of mine, one of the first things she said to me was, I'm so scared of getting pregnant because, you know, I'll have to find a caregiver that I trust. Like, I don't know where the hell I'm going to find a doctor that I trust. And, like, unfortunately, like, at that point, like, I immediately knew why she was saying these things, but I felt like an idiot that I didn't think of that before. Like, but that was my white privilege. You know, she's going into that situation already knowing.
Yeah, that they don't give a fuck about.
Already knowing, like, nobody's gonna take me seriously. I'm gonna get treated like shit. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to work to find a doctor who I feel comfortable with, because I know that that's naturally not gonna happen. Like, statistically, it's gonna be very unlikely that I'm gonna walk into that doctor's office and be treated with the respect that I deserve.
So, hospitals, police, restaurants, I get really bad service.
Your teachers, your educators.
Yeah, I think it's. I had some good ones, but that's the thing. Like when I went to public high school, public grade school, none of them were good. But like the school I went to had black teachers, and a lot of them really cared. Like up until then, but yeah, we had some nuns that were just like some nuns and some teachers that just saw us as just like criminals, like in grade school. It's weird. Grade school and middle school.
There's something so horrible and like disgusting about that. Like you know, children are so innocent and beautiful, and like they come into the world.
I wasn't. It takes it away from you. I don't know if it's the city, because it might be the city. Because the city does that to kids as well, but like, yeah.
It's the city, and I think it's also, like, it's, you know, hanging on to your wide-eyed innocence is definitely something that white people get to do a lot longer than black people. Mm. That sense of, like, that magical childhood sense of, like, endless possibility and wonder. Like, that gets stamped out much earlier for black children, I would imagine, than it does white children. And just, like, being able to experience that, like, joy and that sense of, like, possibility. You know, I mean, that is a privilege that white people have. Not everybody does.
It's very surprising that a lot of people don't know about those things that go on in their own county. Sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean.
But like you said,
you
don't know what you know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, and if it doesn't affect you, why even look? Why care?
Our willful ignorance towards racial issues in America could probably be like psychologically compared in some way to like that phenomenon that exists when there are emergencies and a large groups of people witness it.
The more people see it, the less likely someone will help.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like that could be like psychologically compared to
I think it's just denial. Cause like, I don't know. As long as I've been a kid, like the music I've been listening to, the comedy, the pop culture.
It seems so painfully obvious.
Yeah, everybody has been referencing police brutality since I was a kid. It's in an episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that Jazz is scared of the cop because like if he moves, he's gonna catch 10 warning shots to the back. Right. And then like 10 years later, black people are literally catching 10 warning shots to the back. And like people act surprised. Like they do. I've seen Living Color. Like this is stuff that's broken mainstream where they make fun of police brutality.
Yeah.
So like I don't know how like that's a thing that you can't just seek it out that information and easily process it. It has to be something you're consciously ignoring.
That's what I mean. Like there is like a huge level of willful ignorance like throughout our country about this issue. Like people are just like refusing to accept it. And I feel like that's part of the reason why, you know, there's anger. Like you want to say like, why is there a riot? Because it's been going on for a while. Because of the insane levels of willful ignorance. Like we're just pretending like this isn't a problem. Like there's only so long that you can act like something is okay that is very obviously not okay before people are going to become furious. And, like, why should anybody ever apologize for that? You know, really? Because, like, on some level, like, why isn't everybody rioting?
Yeah, it just has to affect them. Because I don't know, like, we're, at this point, we've become, like, kind of desensitized to it. Like, I knew that, like, I knew it was going to take a lot more than it's taking now when I saw, like, that dude get killed in front of his kids for saying, and he said he had a gun on him. Or, like, the guy that got killed that was pulled over.
You're talking about Philando Castile?
Yeah.
Who said, I have a gun.
Yeah. And he got, like,
I have a legal weapon.
He catched a wiggy in front of his kids. You know? And that was nuts. And then the dude's car broke down, and then he got shot. And then, like, before even that, I remember there was, like, a Virginia Tech prospect that was going to be, like, an athlete who car was broken down, and he knocked on somebody's door for help, and they called the cops on him. And the cop came, and he was trying to wave the cop because he thought he was going to help him with the car.
Right.
And he's waving the cop, and the cop gets out, shoots him, and kills him. And he's a Virginia Tech, like, collegiate athlete. That's a like, just for being black. Yeah, he thought that
he was receiving help.
Yeah, he was. The only reason he got shot is because he was black. Because, like, none of those situations would have happened if he was white. That person probably would have answered the door for him.
And even if they didn't,
and even if they didn't call the cop would have probably been a little bit more patient. Like, there's videos of, like, white people waving guns around and they don't get shot.
If he had been white and the person had called the cops, the cop probably would have been slightly annoyed and assumed that it was just a person who needed some help and had some car trouble or what have you.
Maybe.
Like, they probably would have been a little annoyed that they were even bothered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, realistically.
The fear is there on both sides right now. So I think that maybe you should implement some rules, maybe make things a little more standardized, help with mental health in that regard. And if you're not a cop, if you're just someone who's just trying to get through, like working, trying to get a better understanding, I think just the best thing is just communication. Like, if someone's telling you that something is different than the way of your thinking, do independent research. And I feel like if it's so obvious that you can joke about it, then
why can't you?
It's embedded in our society. It feels like a known fact, you know. Once you get to the point where you can joke about it, it's probably a thing.
Am I racist?
Why? Why do you say that?
I'm not trying to be.
But, like, why do you think that you are racist?
I don't know. Sometimes I am, and I don't mean to be.
Oh, then you just answered your own question. Like, yeah, you're racist.
Yeah, but you know what? I think
I'm just playing.
Well, but Chelsea Pat's it's like a brave and healthy and good thing to do, to say that to yourself. To say, like, am I racist? Because I don't mean to be.
Yeah.
Like, what, the last thing that you just stumbled upon is the most beautiful thing that you've stumbled upon throughout this entire episode,
You've
Chelsea.
discovered everything about privilege.
And that is, you know...
Ask questions.
What's the most important thing that you can do? It's ask yourself, am I racist? Because I don't mean to be. And then, like, honestly, maybe think about if there's anything that you're doing that is racist or that is, like, a benefit of your privilege. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when you're in situations and you can like, recognize that you're benefiting from your white privilege in these specific situations, speak up. Ask yourself what you can do to, like, change your own behaviors, and, like, try to change your own mind, you know?
I want to have the utopia, like I said in the beginning.
Exactly. Like, that's what you want because you're a good person. That's what most people want because most people are great people, you know? It's just hard to, like, it's hard to say, though, like, and what you just did is the perfect thing. You ask yourself and you honestly examine whether or not these things are happening within your life. And you, like, you know, it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make me a bad person that I said some way dumb shit about the fucking bus. It means that, like, I guess it kind of does.
It does. That was wild.
It was wild, I get it.
But people get better. People grow.
But people change. You know, we grow, we change, and that's how, like, society changes.
Yeah.
Is when, like, we start to, like, actually work on this. You know what I mean?
We have to. I think it's important, and I'm glad we talked about it today.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the conversation that white people needed to have before they murdered the Native Americans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, you know,
like, maybe we should talk to these guys.
Maybe we should talk about it first. Like, maybe we don't have to kill them all to get what we want. Maybe
let's just come to some type of a bargaining.
Well, money is the motivation.
Don't get started on money.
I'm sorry, but it is.
Well, it is, yeah. It is, because, like, if you have a monopoly on the world,
you want to keep it.
I have a monopoly on my computer desk.
If you have a monopoly on the world, you're going to want to keep it. You're not going to want to give it up.
Yeah, it's the money.
And, like, that's the scary thing about the fact that, like, by 2045, we will no longer be living in a majority white country, is that how much worse are racial tensions going to become when the reality of, like, what these people's, like, deepest, darkest fear is becoming a minority is actually going to start becoming a reality for them. Like, what's that going to be like? That's why these conversations are so important, because, like, it just, like, there becoming more black people it's not going to, like, take away the fact that
there's still
white people are still going to have privilege. There's just going to be less of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fuck. All right.
It's cool.
Get it together, Red.
Wow.
I know. I get angry.
Thank you guys so much for listening to Obviously It's Fake, the podcast. This has been a truly wonderful end to season 1. We love you guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a great year-ish, I guess, that we've been doing this. And,
yeah. We'll be back.
We'll be back.
Don't you worry.
Nope. We'll be back. Enjoy, my friends. Thank you for listening.
Please remember to like, rate, subscribe, leave us a review. Check out our website, obviouslyitsfake.com. Check out our new Patreon, where you can find lots of exciting things from Obviously It's Fake, the podcast. Goodbye.
You're not going to thank me?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hey, Ian.
Oh my God. So white privilege.
They literally threw me to the back of the outro.
And do you have anything you want to plug?
No, I just follow ace10eyewear.com at ace10eyewear. It's a black-owned business.